Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the last Corporate Jet Investor Town Hall of 2021. Hello to you in Provence, snowy Cape Cod, New Jersey, the Isle of Man, Detroit, Miami, Indiana, Napa Valley, Teterboro, Oklahoma City, Miami, Seattle, California, Zurich, Dublin, Brazil, and Toronto, where it's -2. It's great to see everyone. We've got 5 fantastic experts today, and we're going to go all around the world to see what's going on in the different markets and have a look at what's going to happen in 2022. First up, we're delighted to have Nilesh Patanyak from Bombardier, where he's Regional Vice President Sales for Asia Pacific. Nilesh is normally based in Singapore, very rarely there. He spends his entire time traveling. And today he's coming to us from Montreal. Nilesh, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm well. How are you?
Great. It's really good to see you. A long time since I saw you face to face.
I know.
It's good to see you here anyway.
Good to see you too.
So you have a huge region, stretching all over Asia Pacific. So let's split it up. What's exciting you? And I know a lot of things excite you. In Southeast Asia at the moment. How's that looking?
To be honest, Southeast Asia has gone through the pandemic with a lot of travel restrictions. That has hampered our ability to meet customers and the ability of customers to travel. So it started off the year quite slow, but from Q3 to Q4, it's picked up. A lot of activity level has picked up, and it reinforces our commitment to the market with our expansion of our big service center in Singapore. I think with Singapore starting to ease the border restrictions, so are some of the other countries. I think that will also see a bigger demand coming up.
How are you personally finding it? Because you're someone who travels a lot. Are you finding it hard being sort of hampered?
It was extremely difficult, obviously, last year, and again, beginning of the year. So I've actually been operating outside of Singapore or meeting customers wherever it's possible, right? A good thing about our customers, they are mobile, right? That's why they have private jets and they go wherever they need to be. So I've been meeting customers in North America, in Europe, in Dubai, and being able to show them aircrafts and sell aircrafts. But in the region, it's extremely difficult to travel the way we used to, right? I used to do 4 to 5 countries in a week. That's not possible today.
Because you'd need to do about 12 tests to do that.
And quarantines.
So we've got Chad coming up from Jetcraft later, and Jetcraft's just released its latest forecast, and they're really bullish on Southeast Asia and Australasia. Would you agree with that?
I am extremely bullish, and as you know, we are the market leader in the region. Both in Australia, Southeast Asia, India, and Asia Pacific in general. And that's the reason we keep on making the ambitious expansion of our service center in Singapore and the new service center in Melbourne. So we are bullish on the market. And what we've seen this pandemic has brought to, as we at Bombardier are seeing, a new generation of business jet owners, right? So I think I've shared this with you. That there's about 17,000 business aircrafts plus 17,500 plus aircrafts in the world. If you look at Asia Pacific, there's about 500. If you add China, there's about 1,000 plus, right? We are just scratching the surface. But when you look at the number of billionaires, there is 2,700 billionaires in the world and about 1,100 in Asia. So close to a little bit less than half a billionaires, but less than 10% of the fleet. So there is a so-called penetration level is lower. So there's a tremendous opportunity. So I think the pandemic has educated the business jet community of potential buyers to look at the market, and we're seeing a lot of concept buyers, right? New generation buyers. I think the time is ideal for fleet operators to start approaching this market. As you know, NetJets and FlexJet and VistaJet, they're all in Europe or North America, but they're not as present other than VistaJet, who's present in Asia. So there's an opportunity there also for so-called first-time buyers and first-time flyers.
is it difficult for a first-time buyer because they typically take longer, to sell an aircraft to? And at the moment, you've got huge demand for your products. All OEMs have. Is it hard for first-time buyers to get their act together fast enough to buy a new aircraft?
I think it all depends on the decision-making ability of the first-time buyers. Obviously, if they're hesitating, one thing right now, our biggest competition is my own colleagues in the US, right? So we started off, having availability in 22. Now we are selling aircraft well into 23 and in 24, right? So the demand out of the US is very high, but Asia has been also very, very bullish this year. We've seen demand from Australia, from Southeast Asia, and especially India. I mean, it's been a phenomenal year for us there. So I think the key question is, obviously, if we work with our customers and we work with whoever the customer chooses to advise them to speed up the transaction. But in terms of getting the financing done, getting the operating structure done, getting all of that done for a first-time buyer will obviously take a bit longer than somebody who has a fleet of aircraft and has done this before.
To India, let's talk about that. With lots of people on this call have been waiting for India to take off for a while. In 2015, when everyone was getting excited about China, India was very much on the back burner. You see a lot happening there at the moment?
Well, this was an exceptional year for us out of India. And we see in demand both the Globals and Challenger fleet out of the country. And there's also concept buyers coming there. I've always been bullish about India and Southeast Asia. I think again, there is going to be some infrastructure challenges we need to overcome. There is some we have to work with the government and educate them to make it easier for business aircraft operators to operate. But the so-called demand and the need for business aircraft, it exists in India, Southeast Asia, Australia, all through Asia Pacific, because as Asian companies go global, as they have global supply chains, global customer bases, global operations, they need connectivity, right? If they're making billion-dollar investments in remote places, they need to be able to access those facilities or operations to do business.
And Australasia, that's such a mature market. There can't be that much growth there.
I think I'm here in Montreal because we are doing some deliveries into Australia, and so there is a lot of new buyers coming up. Again, like you said, it takes a bit of time. The key challenge with Australia is the borders, right? Just like most of Asia. So that doesn't give unless the customer is traveling abroad quite a bit, the customers take their time. So that's the biggest challenge. But the market, I think, is extremely hot, and that's why we are expanding and building a new facility, a service facility out of Essendon Fields in Melbourne. So because we see the market expanding in the future. Which
is great. I want to go and visit it. Although terrible for the cricket today for England. Nilesh, we've got a question from Richard Berkemeyer. How is the order book looking on the G7500? Maybe, I know you're not allowed to give forward forecasts, but what's demand like for the global 7500?
For us in Asia, to be honest, we get a lot of demand for Globals, right? Our customers, when they take off from Australia or from Melbourne, they want to go to LA directly, or go from Singapore to San Francisco, or New York to Delhi, or New York to Mumbai. So we are seeing a lot of demand from Globals, and we are, and we will continue to see this, and Asia will be a strong market for Globals. Where I see is for the challengers, we find is that the Asians are the new concept buyers. They can't move as fast as my American buyers, right? And that's where I think we, like you said, we need to educate our first-time buyers to move a bit faster, or have them ready to grab those positions. That's
great. And so finally, we're almost at the end of 2021. Hopefully 2022 will be a freer, easier year to travel around. Who knows? What's your thoughts on 2022?
I think Asian countries and the governments will turn the corner in 2022. I don't think, we are very, I would call integrated economy, especially coming out of Singapore. I'm a big believer of Singapore as a regional hub for Asia. And that's why we have invested so much in the country and in the region. I believe that Asia will be back next year. I hope the market is as strong as it is this year and next year. And I think the biggest challenge for most manufacturers and even pre-owned will be availability, right? This has been an exceptional year for everybody. We are at record low in terms of inventory levels, both new and pre-owned. So I think that is the challenge. We as salespeople have to come up with solutions especially for concept buyers who want immediate aircraft, right? To find solutions to bridge the gap until they get the new or pre-owned aircraft they have. So I think 2022 looks promising at this point, and we hope that we can as a society, turn the corner and build on what we've learned in the last 2 years.
Brilliant. Nilesh, always great to see you. Hopefully see you in real life next year.
Same here. Looking forward to sharing a drink with you in person.
Definitely. Look forward to it. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to pop from Montreal to England. We're delighted to have Aoife O'Sullivan. Aoife needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. She's the founder of the Air Law Firm and also chair of the British Business General Aviation Association, or BBGA. Aoife, you've got COVID, but how are you?
Thanks, Al. I'm fine, thank you. Still standing. Still here, thank God. But all good, all good. I'm one of the luckier ones, I think. I had a confirmation back this morning. And but for that, to be honest, I would have thought I had man flu. It's thankfully it's hasn't been fun, but it's as I say, one of the luckier ones, thankfully.
You need to be careful. Man flu is one of the worst diseases anyone can ever get.
So I hear, Al. So I hear many times.
Are you? So, is this a terrible timing for you? You just flat out at the moment, work-wise.
It is. It's. I mean, end of year always is. Because at the end of year, typically, to be honest, at this time of year, we're closing out financings. What I have noticed, I mean, when I thought about coming to speak with you today, it was, what are the big differences in the last 2 quarters versus the first 2 quarters of 2021? And actually, there's quite a marked difference in the work that we're seeing, the work that we're doing in terms of what's happening on the deals. Definitely massive demand. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I've been at this many years now, and I've never ever seen anything like the demand, the pressure put on us to complete deals as quickly as possible. That whether it's a first-time buyer like Nilesh was talking about, or a seasoned buyer, there is huge pressure from the market, because I have had clients that have actively lost out on aircraft because they simply weren't fast enough. They weren't making their decisions fast enough. So the last 2 quarters have been great in terms of commitment. Yes, I do want to buy it, and yes, I do want to buy it as quickly as possible. Unfortunately for us as lawyers, you still have to go through the same process. You still have to get the structures right, get the tax right, go through the purchase agreement, etc. But one marked difference I've noticed is less financing. So it's predominantly cash right now, and that obviously does make the deal happen a little faster. So I'm expecting next year to be a lot of refinancing. They'll take the cash purchase and they'll run it into a financing arrangement, and we're already seeing signs of that starting to happen. But the other thing I noticed a lot is, and it's not even so much Europe. I mean, Europe is very buoyant. Probably predominantly what we've been seeing is owners taking their aircraft back from charter. So where previously they would have given hours into the charter operators under this kind of a concept of, well, let's share on the fixed costs on the hours we're not using. I've seen a lot of them withdraw that, and they're using it mainly for themselves at the moment. Problem with that, obviously, is you have to be very careful with tax, because if the aircraft was imported zero-rated because it was put on charter, the minute you put it back, you're threatening that tax position. So we see a bit of that, seeing an awful lot of older aircraft, people literally outbidding each other on 10, 15, 20, even 22-year-old aircraft at the moment. And they're literally outbidding each other on it. I've never, ever seen anything like it. So it's great. I mean, it's a very positive market. I think that, and that's across Europe, but a lot of the sales we see are going into the States, obviously this time of year with the tax treatment, etc. It's, you know, it's all very positive. The issue really is around logistics. It's not so much about getting the deal done on time. It's about getting, for example, the FAA, DAR over, or the ODA, getting somebody in Europe who's available, getting somebody who can actually move around Europe. Certainly at the start of the year, we had problems with one of the better FAR DARs being stuck, or FAA DARs being stuck in Germany, and you know the solution was, well, we'll fly to you. So you know, this bizarre situation of taking an aircraft over to Germany just to get it signed off for N registration, and then having to deal with the consequence of actually Germany is not the best place in the world to be trying to close a deal. So now what do we do? Take it back out again. So there's a lot of that going on. It's a lot of just trying to work around COVID particularly, and the COVID restrictions on quarantine. The UK has interestingly really come into its own this year. As predicted, post-Brexit, it has become a very helpful closing jurisdiction because it's outside the European VAT zone now, so it has its own VAT zone, independent of Europe. But it has made closings a little easier because we have more facilities here in the UK. So you know, you're not caught by the usuals in terms of restricted runways, etc. So yeah, it's been very, very busy. Huge amount of interest in the last quarter in programs. So a lot of queries on accessing into the programs. And very interestingly, the reaction of some of the programs being, sorry, we're closed. Come back to us next year when we should be able to allocate some hours again. And that's certainly very interesting. Haven't seen that before, not even in the heyday.
So you mentioned Brexit. Has it been a great success for operators?
Did you say a great success? I don't think success would be the right word. I think challenge, frustrating challenge is how I would describe Brexit. It's settled, to be honest. It's settling down. The BBGA has done a phenomenal amount of work with the DFT and the CAA on negotiating the bilaterals with Europe. And for the benefit of anybody not too familiar with it, it's literally just trying to renegotiate freedom rights, traffic rights back for UK operators in Europe, and actually, interestingly, vice versa. So with the withdrawal agreement, we lost 5 of the 9 freedoms. So we were given the 4 freedoms, which is basically the right to go in with passengers, fly around Europe and come back out again with the same passengers. What the UK operators lost was the ability to pick somebody up in Nice and take them on charter down to Bordeaux. So that's obviously intra-domestic. So the CAA have literally spent since January renegotiating all of that with each individual member state, and they've made huge progress. I think that where it's come out now is it's approvals are needed, but approvals are needed on both sides. So the CAA have to approve the same for the European operators coming into the UK. So that has certainly been a challenge, but as I say, it seems to be settling. I am seeing an increased interest in the G register. It did go quiet, and that's just our personal experience, but we didn't have an awful lot of interest in the first 2 quarters. That's come back, and there certainly seems to be a lot more interest in the UK again, which is great news for the UK.
So you talked about it being a seller's market. Are you seeing a lot of pressure from buyers to say, I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to borrow scope. I'm not going to do it, or even do a BPI. I don't even need you to look at the LOI. I'm just going to sign it.
Yeah,
and you think that's great?
I think it's fantastic. Hell, no, I don't. I think quite the opposite. In fact, I am very concerned about anybody, particularly a new buyer, that would be willing or interested to buy a multi-million-dollar asset without even doing a basic kick the tires, which is what they seem to be wanting to do. I mean, at the very least, you need the records review and boroscopes. There is a huge amount of pressure because of the price increases and because of the bidding wars that we're seeing between buyers. There's a huge amount of pressure, and sellers are putting the pressure on of, I have another buyer who's not going to be anywhere as awkward as your guy is. He's not talking about boroscopes. He's willing. I mean, I had one last week where the buyer's broker told me that the other buyer was willing to accept an inspection that was done last year. And it's, well, the aircraft has flown many, many hours since then. So it's the concern for us, obviously, is it's bound to come back and bite them. And that's not the experience you want to give a first-time buyer. And I don't think it's a sensible or responsible approach by any of us in the industry. So we try to encourage it. That said, to be honest, getting access to the facilities and getting, with the COVID restrictions, but even just general availability and slots availability at the facilities, I can see why there's a pressure on everybody. It's just, it's not ideal. And really, you don't want these people ending up with an absolute nightmare that they weren't prepared for in the future. I mean, if they want to go ahead and do a boroscope and still buy the aircraft with a problem, absolutely, buyer beware. But if you're buying it sight unseen and just going on the back of literally somebody going on with an iPhone, walking you around the interior of the cabin, and you're happy to hand over 20 odd million for that, then yeah, I do think that's crazy, to be honest.
And finally, what's your prediction for 2022? Are you bullish, or are you worried about Omicron?
That's a good question. I personally, not particularly, not with everything that we're being told, and certainly experience on the airline side as well, is that we might have all been a little too hasty with this one in terms of shutting the borders. I'd hate to be in government. You can't make a right decision either way. So
you do get good Christmas parties, though.
We would have had great Christmas parties, exactly, if we were only allowed out. I think for this market, I can't see this easing up. I really can't. I mean, it is not easing, and we're not seeing the deals all closing out on the 31st of December. Quite the contrary, actually. We're already pushed into January on a number of them. And that, to me, shows real bullishness in the market. This isn't a mad dash to the 31st of December. These are people who are prepared to carry on and go ahead and buy it in the new year. And I do expect a lot of refinancings next year. There was so much in terms of cash purchasing, I think, and given the availability of finance and the rates at the moment, I really can see that happening next year.
Can you also see a bit of litigation from people who've rushed into things?
Interesting you say that. 2007, 2008, the first signs for us that something was starting to go wrong was the amount that went into litigation. And there's some rumbling going on. There's no doubt there's some rumbling. But I think the actual sales and purchases are all progressing at a fairly rapid rate. So they haven't gone into dispute. They're not going into dispute. And in fact, they're all being perfectly lovely with each other, turning a blind eye to just, technical defaults wherever they want. Where I'm seeing it more so is on disputes with facilities, challenging the bills that are coming out of facilities. Is something really that badly wrong with this aircraft? And they're always a good sign that there's a pressure starting to come, but not quite yet. I honestly, I would have thought, and I'm not a broker, I'm certainly not a fortune teller, but I just can't see it right now. I think that there's just too much going on, and too many genuinely serious buyers out there.
Brilliant. Aoife, as David Mayer says, get well soon, and great seeing you.
Thank you, Al. Good to see you.
You too. And right, so we've gone from Singapore, technically Montreal, but we'll ignore that, to England. We're now going to go down to Cape Town, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and we're delighted to have Riche Telly, Commercial Director, Aircraft Management, ExecuJet Africa. Riche, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Al, for inviting me to this forum. It's really nice joining you fine people on this forum. Thank you.
No, it's awesome having you. So South Africa's been dealt a hammer blow, haven't you? A few weeks ago, your scientists find a new variant, which probably didn't even start in South Africa. And the next thing, your peak travel season, key countries like Europe and the UK block all travel from you. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's well, as you say, it's it's our peak season. It's regrettable, especially for Cape Town. A lot of Europeans have made prior arrangements and looking forward to their summer vacations down in South Africa, and it was a really shock to find that that we've announced this new variant and call it a knee-jerk reaction by government. And as the previous speaker has said, that you find that it's difficult for governments to make these calls, and how do you make a right call? And yes, it's upsetting a lot of people. It hurts the economy. It it throws a lot of people their travel plans out. A lot of people feel hurt, so it's uncomfortable. And we can only hope that this new variant that's been discovered in a way gets choked and nip in the bud, and so that we can in a way move forward. I'm sure the whole world is as shocked as we were. But yeah, uncomfortable to be blocked by travel bans and restrictions again. It's never an easy thing. So we have to carry on and see how we can work around these restrictions.
And just for people who aren't familiar with the South African business jet market, it's probably one of the most cyclical in the world, isn't it? This really is your peak 4 months.
Absolutely. As you say, cyclical, very much so. We find that in our market, especially in Africa as a whole, it's in an uptick. It's very buoyant at the moment. We've seen a lot of movement of aircraft in the African region. Aircraft come onto market, for sale, and then, they're on, and the next time you look, it's no more available. I mean, just recently we had an aircraft in the market for a client that showed interest, and the next day the aircraft was scooped up. So a good time for us in terms of buoyancy and aircraft availability and sales. But yeah, as you say, it's cyclical, and at the moment we're hoping to ride a wave under the circumstances.
And you've got a really interesting CV. You've been in military aviation, commercial aviation, and business aviation. Is this the toughest market you've seen?
I have to say, Elster, that it's been very rough and very challenging and also interesting. Tough, yes, because obviously we have to advise our clients how to make the best decision for what they want to do with their money, how to manage their asset, how to sort of turn their dollar around. And it's interesting indeed. Like you said, we've seen growth in our market, which is odd, and but yeah, certainly tough. We've had to really sit and think things over and make sure we give the best advisement to clients, because every aircraft owner only wants the best for his pound or his dollar.
And for your team, South Africa had you were hit very badly last summer, South African summer, so winter in Northern Hemisphere.
Sure.
You had probably some of the toughest lockdowns in the world. You couldn't buy alcohol or cigarettes.
Yeah.
How's morale? Is it hard keeping everyone motivated and working again when you've been blocked again?
Honestly, it's never easy when you have to motivate your colleagues who has been restricted, to their private homes and not being able to socialize and enjoy a nice wine or something like that. So you try your best to to keep people motivated, especially, I mean, oneself. It's difficult. I mean, people understand that since the world went into that hard lockdown last year, we've seen a lot of companies closing down as a result of business not making means end. So some of the colleagues that we've dealt with, and most of them, in fact, understand these such situations. And some people that went on furlough or were put on furlough, we were lucky that our colleagues do understand the situation, and have kept on and stuck with us. So yes, it's never easy, but I'm pleased to say that the most of the colleagues that I work with, understand the circumstances and have kept on, and just basically held on, and yeah, positive is a strong word, but yeah, motivated, sure. It took some fighting to keep people, motivated in this under the circumstances.
And are you feeling optimistic about the next few years? You're seeing new buyers. You know that everyone's going to want to come back and visit.
Yes, one have to be always, positive about things. Although, the world sometimes throw a curveball at you, you're going to have to stand up and dust yourself off and move on. Yes, we do feel very positive. I must say that we've seen a very good year for us in the business jet aviation. We're just looking ahead and hoping that there is sustainability and continuity for us going forward in this market. Thus far, things are looking okay in South Africa. That we've seen a bit of a hit in the third quarter, where the growth has dropped by 1.5%. That's the forecast by economists. But so we're looking positive ahead and hoping to see that that we have some furtherance in this market.
And I guess finally, everything you do is so much more work at the moment. Do you think you'll ever get back to life where where it's easy to fly from A to B? You don't restrict. Do you think, is this the new normal, or the now normal, as people say, or are you hopeful that in 12 months' time we'll just look back on this and go, God, can you believe that we used to have to do that?
Interesting. Yes, we look. I think, and with mankind, it's always been, you have 100-year cycle where things or an odd thing happen. I think with us, we always try and see that and hope that things will turn to normality, in the future. It seems this virus is going to be with us for the foreseeable future until we can get it under control. But with the various mutations we've seen thus far and the way it behaves, we always have to mitigate and try and see how we can move ahead. We're hoping to see normality. The next 12 months is maybe positive, but we're hoping to see some form of normality returning to us all in the next 18 months. Seems that this mask thing is a come and go, and I see it in some countries they have eased on it in terms of enforcing these sort of things. The fact that we can see vaccines being rolled out, which is a positive thing. In our space, we're hoping to get things better. Fortunately, as you said earlier, our scientists are top notch. So we're hoping that that we make some progress in this space and move ahead positive.
Brilliant, Richard. Thanks so much. Hopefully, see you for a glass of wine in Constantia in a year's time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And that was Roche Telly, Commercial Director, Aircraft Management, Africa, ExecuJet. Right. We've talked about how the US is booming. We've talked about how busy it is. Who better than to go to an Oklahoma transaction attorney? Delighted to have Jack Gilchrist, founding director and shareholder of Gilchrist Aviation Law. Jack, how are you?
Good. Yeah, good. Thanks, Al. Certainly, thanks for having me on. And I'm never so busy as to get a chance to sit down with you.
I appreciate that, because this is December.
It is December.
You've been an aviation lawyer for more than 30 years. Have you ever seen a market as hot as this?
That's a great question. I would say no from a corporate commercial aviation industry, particularly the differences between the two, but certainly the corporate aviation industry, I've not seen that crazy. That is, it's been probably the busiest year I think that we've seen yet. So we do a lot of commercial aviation work too. So between the two, commercial aviation has had its challenges, which in my view, I'm not an analyst, but in my view, the challenges with commercial aviation have fed right into the hands of corporate aviation. And but the challenges that they've had on the commercial aviation side, us doing transactional work, we do title and registration work, as you know, and we stay busy doing both. And we've done a lot of fleet securitization, that kind of thing too. But it has been a busy year.
And everyone is rushing. I'm sure all around your office, there's people rushing to get deals done now. Is everything going to close by the end of the year?
Everything. That's a good question. Everything that we have, yes, will close. Everything, anything that's in our hands, insofar as it's up to us, will close. You know, this will be my 32nd December to work in this industry, the final quarter. And we always tend to ask the question, can we close everything by the end of the year? And somehow it does end up working. So yeah, it'll close. I think there's some planning involved, certainly. And maybe even, I would say, planning that is particularly necessary now, maybe unusually, because of the fact that we've had several sort of curveballs from the FAA, and not just the FAA, the federal government, because they've kind of taken a little different attitude about work and work days and schedules and scheduling. We've had several closings, that is FAA closures, the registry would close. We've had that happen more in the last year than I've ever seen, with closing the day after a holiday. That's not just Thanksgiving. They've done that now for the last probably 20 years or 15 to 20 years, but day after Thanksgiving. But they've done that several times since then as well, or before that. And then we'll get notice, let's say, the same day, the day before a federal holiday, that they're going to close down early, maybe a 1 o'clock closing of the registry, that sort of thing. So I think keeping that in mind is pretty important this year for sure.
Because they've said they're shutting on December the 30th. So in some ways, that's a nightmare for you, because you lose the whole day.
Yeah, actually, I don't have the 31st. We have two federal holidays. The 24th, because Christmas is on a Saturday this year, and New Year's Day is on a Saturday. So we have the 24th as a federal holiday, and the 31st is a holiday. Right. I do think people should be very cautious about early closures on either of those days. We've been pressing the registry management to get us word earlier than the same day, which we've gotten a lot of that this year. Again, with the FAA announcing at 9:30 in the morning that they're going to close early for the day, and we can't blame the registry. They're not in charge of that. They get word from the White House, essentially, that they'll close early and that kind of thing. So yeah, the fact that the 31st is on a Friday adds a challenge that we only see every once in a while. And then early closure before that could be a real problem, I think, too. So yeah, it adds to that.
But personally, is that quite nice, because you get a break at the end of the month?
It all comes around, though, because what I'm really afraid of is registry modernization and the fact that we'll be able to close transactions electronically 24 hours a day. and I'm trying to keep that secret. So I'd appreciate it if you just keep that between you and I for now. But that will be interesting. So now, the same number of deals close if they get pushed off until later on. We stay pretty busy. It's nice when they close, when they say we close, and so that's helpful too, I think.
Although 24-hour closing is not going to be a problem for you, but it's going to be horrible for your associates.
Yeah, it would mean I'd have to be on the phone a lot more for sure. I think that's an interesting registry modernization. In all seriousness, is it was supposed to happen, this year, October of this year. I think sort of by federal mandate. I think as everything else, from your local grocery store to your shoe sales, everything's affected. Everything gets blamed on COVID at the end of the day, but that's probably where it got, I think. But they are now focusing on fall of 2022 for what they claim will be at least a fully available electronic aircraft registry, and that'll be among a handful of significant changes that I've seen in my career. But it keeps us fresh and young and new, and keeps us looking at things, I think, too. But that'll probably be among the biggest changes that everybody will face on a go forward basis. And there's a lot of significant issues that folks will focus on, and we'll be working closely with the FAA over the next year in connection with that, mostly to be able to educate all of those folks out there that we work with on aircraft closings and transactions, escrow transactions, to prepare in advance for those closings, because it's going to be a much different scenario, I think.
So you've already said you're not an analyst, but you've already given us a one thing which is expected in 2022. What's your other forecast for next year?
Good. Yeah, I'm not an analyst. I describe myself much more as the tail than the dog, as we say. But I do know how fast we get wagged these days. Here's what I would say. I think we have been extremely busy this year with closings and transactions, and some unusual transactions too. 2022, I would suggest, and past that as well. What we'll see, I think you see the pin-up demand that everybody's talking about, and I think none better than my friend and colleague Chad Anderson, who will follow me here, that'll give us a bit more insight into that. But the fact is, commercial aviation is continuing with challenges of getting people between points A and B, and that pushes pressure down to I should say, business aviation in every aspect. That's what we've seen, both in charter carrying and fractional. We do NetJet's work here too, and that work is extremely busy. They would love more planes. So then ultimately here soon, we hope we'll have more planes delivered. As the manufacturers ramp up delivery, those new planes come into the market. People who settled for, as Aoife said, as people settle for older planes, then they're going to change out and up and that kind of thing. And Chad will confirm, I think, too, that once people go corporate jet, they're not quick to go back. So that's an interesting thing. It could, in my view, could change business aviation for years to come. That's what we see, is people moving into the market that way too. So, and our commercial airline clients continue to be pretty satisfied too. We've got some good ones there. So anyway, it's I think the forecast is good.
Brilliant. Jack, great seeing you, and I'll let you get back and get closing.
Good. We'll do that. Thank you very much, Al.
Thanks so much to Jack Gilchrist from Gilchrist Aviation Law. And last, but by no means least, delighted to go to Chad Anderson, president of Jetcraft. Jetcraft needs no introduction. Chad, you don't get one. As someone just commented, you've gone all out on the Christmas decorations as well.
Thank you. Yes. Welcome. Happy holidays.
How are you?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. I had the pleasure of visiting one-on-one with Al in London last week, so I'm fresh back. I'm airline frustrated and happy about business aviation.
As Jack was saying, airlines, you can't fly direct anymore, and it's it's those little things that are pushing people towards business aviation. But before we talk about
I live in Minneapolis, and we go between London. I had to go through Amsterdam to get back to Minneapolis, meaning I left my hotel room at 3 a.m. in the morning. So as frustrating as that is, it's the experience that I think plants further demand.
Chad, you know what you need? You need a business jet.
I do. We like them when they're transacting, though. I like to be a seller, not a user.
Before we get onto your forecast, which is fascinating, and also you can sign on to it, click on it, and download it by clicking below. What's your view on the last month of this year?
I think we're seeing a little bit of the typical tax timing demand is what's going on right now. So, and it's always extraordinary. So realize that December isn't a normal place for our industry to be. It is very, very tax driven for American buyers at the moment. I still see a healthy demand for the business jets in 2022. The transactions we're architecting today are already into 2022 and beyond. Our forecast is going to tell you you're going to see about 12,200 pre-owned business jets transacted over the next 5 years. We're saying that's about $57.2 billion in value worth of aircraft. That's climbing at a pretty stable rate of about 4% year over year in the pre-owned category. That's what we focus on. But the health of the pre-owned market is really driven by the health of the manufacturers, and what Nilesh was saying earlier on in the building of the backlogs, and particularly the large jet category, is very consistent, I think, across the manufacturers. That's healthy for us. I think we're finally back to sustainable growth, and the ultra high net worth individual sector is what's going to continue to, I think, fulfill that level of growth. You look at the wealth that has been built over the last 5 years and what has happened to our market, and you've seen ultra high net worth individual population grow by a little over 6% over the last 5 years. We're suggesting that you're going to see that growth continue at about a 7% level over the next 5 years. What's, I think, most relevant, though, is of the ultra high net worth category of population, let's say, only 12% of that population are users of business aviation, be it a charter user, fractional ownership, jet card user, and so forth. Of that 12%, only 18% are owners. So it's a tiny, minute section of the ultra high net worth individuals capable of buying airplanes. Then we look at the users and how much you look at the flight levels, and the flight levels have already begun to climb, and particularly in the Americas, we see it leading the way. I'd say that's mostly because, at least in the United States of America, we don't have to, crossing state borders isn't like crossing borders of other countries. So we don't have quarantines and COVID tests and everything else. It's far easier. So you've started to see flight levels rebound. As borders continue to open around the world, you're going to see Asia Pacific continue to expand. You're going to see Europe return to life. And so forth. So if we're already seeing the level of demand we're seeing in the Americas, so too will Asia Pacific and Europe follow in time.
Okay, so we've got a great question from Sharon McKenna.
Okay.
Do you see an end to this elevated demand for used aircraft? And
There's always
if so, when and why?
There's always a downturn. I guarantee you there will be a downturn. Can't tell you exactly when, but I'm going to predict it's going to be in 2025. I can tell you. I guarantee you there will be another downturn. Yes. With confidence.
And what will cause it?
Who knew? Who knows? Who knew we were going to have a pandemic in March of whatever it was, 2020. But, it might be it may be another market bubble and so forth. The thing I think we all have to take a level of confidence in the market we exist in today. I'm old enough to remember the run up to 2007, 2008. And I survived the cliff dive that all of us experienced. And that was hard. It sucked for a lot of people. A lot of people lost a lot of money in that cliff dive. Losing that amount of money taught us a lot of lessons. And I think the overall health of the market, the substance of the order books for all the OEMs is tremendous. They have a high quality book of business. That's healthy. Didn't have that in the last run up. You have, I think they're all being good stewards of supply and demand and not overbuilding of aircraft. Although I think we can all stand to see some more production at the moment in time, and we would encourage that because I think it's sustainable now. But so people, I'm sure somebody's out there asking, are you seeing prices increase? Yes, we are. Marginally and responsibly and manageably. Yes, we are. That's the important part, though. You don't want to see it get out of control. That isn't good for any of us in the industry, and I don't think that's going to happen anyway.
And I was going to ask you about value. So you talk about the cliff edge. You're hoping we're not going to see the same cliff edge with values, which is caused by supply. Right.
No, I don't see that happening because the value increases, and Aoife mentioned the bidding wars and so forth. Bidding wars, they suck. It's not a comfortable place to be. I also would tell you though that I think that's a little bit the November, December fury that we're all experiencing. I think there's going to be a little bit of a reset, a little bit of a return to normal business come January, February, Q1 of next year. I think people will settle down a bit just because of the time anxieties that everybody's facing right now. So I don't see a rapid ramp up of prices. I see a responsible ramp up of values of aircraft, which will ultimately return to a normal level of depreciation.
This is an industry full of people with attention deficit disorder. If you were, what's one thing they should take from your forecast?
Overall, I think it's just we're in a manageable growth of our industry overall. I think the best takeaway is be proud of our industry finally, because all of us remember back in the whole integrity of our industry was challenged. And the takeaway is the jet cards, the charter ownership, the fractional ownership, everybody's going to do well. People are going to realize the life-changing benefits of business aviation because they've had to get exposed to it to avoid exposure to a pandemic and take advantage of it. Be okay with it. I think as an industry, we all need to continue to be sensitive to emissions, returning to carbon neutrality. I think we're going to all be tested, and what we're going to do to address that, it has to be addressed on an industry level. So the takeaway is be proud of your industry, sell business aviation. The integrity of it is okay so long as we're responsible users of it. And it has to start at a manufacturing level as well as the ownership levels to use sustainable aviation fuel and find other ways for us to return to a green nature.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic answer. And we should have ended on that because that was so good. But I've got a question or a comment from Jay Messenger, good friend of ours, yours and mine.
Hi, Jay.
I do not believe the demand will subside, but I do believe that there may be more supply created by corporate trading, which has not been as active. Just a little bit more supply will settle some of the frenzy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it will. It will. And actually, The nice thing about the corporates is the corporates are better at planning fleet evolutions. And so the airplanes that they have coming are probably already on the order books. I know in several cases, our clients have new orders with the various manufacturers. So there is a predictable timeline of turnover, and we absolutely need the airplanes they're putting out. Because it's not unusual for the corporates to let go of airplanes that are 5, 6, 7 years old, which is absolutely sweet spot for the pre-owned market. Couldn't agree more with Jay. Nice to hear from you, Jay.
You never argue with Jay. A final question.
Hard to argue with Jay.
from Terry Spruce. OEMs usually build around 650 to 700 units a year. Is that what you think will happen in 2022?
That's what I'm hearing from the statistics. We focused our forecast on the pre-owned units, and so what we typically see, I anticipate in the pre-owned world, you're going to see about 2,200 airplanes turnover this year, and that's going to climb up to 2,647 by 2025. And then if you take a look at the manufacturers, to go back to that, that's 600-700. Honestly, I'd love to see that grow a little bit, just because it would make some of our lives simpler in the pre-owned world. But yeah, I think those are numbers that I'm hearing.
Brilliant. Chad, always great to see you. Thanks so much. And I'll let you get back to closing deals.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks so much to Nilesh, to Aoife, to Roger, to Jack, to Chad. Thanks so much to everyone for watching. On behalf of our entire team, some of whom are here, some of whom are still working, busy doing this, Hannah and Terry, we'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a fantastic, happy, wealthy and healthy 2022. Thank you very much.
See you in 2022.